The day my grandmother's will was read. My cousin called me a thief in front of the entire family. Interesting thing about public humiliation. Sometimes the pain isn't the accusation itself. It's realizing how many people were already prepared to believe it. Every head around that conference table turned toward me at once. My uncle folded his arms. My aunt stared down at a typed document she'd prepared in advance. And my cousin Veronica? Perfect nails. Perfect hair. Perfect performance. Looked directly at me and said, "She doesn't deserve a penny." Interesting, honestly. Because betrayal sounds different once someone rehearses it beforehand. Nobody defended me. Not one person. Not even the relatives who watched me spend every Sunday at Grandma Dorothy's house for almost 10 years. The same Sundays my uncle skipped. The same Sundays Veronica forgot. The same Sundays Sandra claimed she was too busy at church. Interesting thing about family loyalty. People often confuse proximity to power with morality. My name is Cora Sheridan. I'm 33 years old. Cloud infrastructure engineer. And according to everyone sitting in Gerald Aldridge's law office that morning, I had spent the last year stealing from my dying grandmother. Jewelry. Cash. Family heirlooms. The pearls. Especially the pearls. Interesting, honestly. Because families become terrifyingly predictable once inheritance enters the room. But here's the part none of them knew yet. Not Robert. Not Sandra. Not Veronica. Not even me. 4 months before she died, my grandmother quietly built a case against all of them from a recliner beside her living room window. And she used the security system I installed to do it. Interesting thing about old women people underestimate. They learn to weaponize patience long before younger people notice. My mother died when I was 12. Ovarian cancer. Caught late. 1 year she was baking Christmas cookies. The next she was too weak to hold the mixer. Interesting, honestly. Because childhood ends instantly once hospitals enter your house repeatedly. My father lasted 6 weeks after the funeral. 6. Then one morning, I woke up and found a note beside the coffee maker. "I'm sorry, kid." That was it. No explanation. No address. No promise to call. Just a missing suitcase and silence. Interesting thing about abandonment. People always imagine it happening dramatically. Usually, it happens quietly at kitchen counters. Grandma Dorothy took me in the next day. 60 years old. Widowed. Lived alone in a 3-bedroom ranch house in Hadley, Connecticut. And somehow, despite losing her daughter, despite already grieving, she still made room for me emotionally without hesitation. Interesting, honestly. Because genuinely loving people rarely make children earn safety first. Sundays became ours after that. Always Sundays. Chicken soup simmering by 7 in the morning. Celery. Carrots. 1 bay leaf from the same glass jar she'd owned since the Reagan administration. Blue Tupperware containers stacked beside the stove. "Soup is love you can reheat," she'd say. And honestly, that woman probably raised me more through soup than words. Interesting thing about stable love. It's usually repetitive. Predictable. Quiet. I put myself through Central Connecticut State working night shifts at a data center. Server maintenance. Cable management. Cold fluorescent lights at 2 a.m. Energy drinks and database migrations. I graduated with a degree in information systems. Landed a cloud infrastructure job in Hartford. Moved 40 minutes away. Close enough to visit. Far enough to breathe. And still, every single Sunday, I came back. Interesting, honestly. Because people who save your life emotionally become part of your nervous system permanently. Snowstorms. Construction traffic. Summer heat. Didn't matter. I showed up. Not because Grandma demanded it. Because she never did. Huge difference. Meanwhile, the rest of the family loved Grandma Dorothy in a very different way. The financial kind. Interesting thing about inheritance vultures. They begin circling long before death arrives. Uncle Robert. 58 years old. Commercial real estate. Expensive watches. Permanent financial panic hidden beneath expensive cologne. The kind of man who leased luxury cars while refinancing his house twice. Aunt Sandra? Church choir. Bible study organizer. Professional victim. The kind of woman who turned kindness into branding opportunities. And Veronica. Their daughter. My cousin. 31 years old. Pharmaceutical sales. Social media perfection. The human embodiment of filtered lighting. Interesting honestly. Because some people mistake presentation for character after long enough. Veronica and I grew up together. But somewhere around high school, she decided my existence irritated her. Not because I competed. Because Grandma noticed me. Interesting thing about insecure people. Attention given to someone else feels like theft to them automatically. Cora drove through the snow again today. That sentence alone could ruin Veronica's mood for hours. Not because I wanted praise. Because my consistency exposed everyone else's absence naturally. Robert called me the handyman once at Thanksgiving. Sandra laughed. Veronica smirked into her wine glass. Nobody asked about my job. Nobody asked how I paid for school. Nobody asked why I came every Sunday. They just assumed I wanted something. Interesting honestly. Because toxic families cannot imagine love without transaction. Then Grandma fell. 14 months before the will reading. Kitchen tile. Trying to reach a mixing bowl from the top shelf. I got the call at work. Drove 40 minutes in 28. Found her sitting on the floor annoyed more than injured. I've been falling since before you were born, she told the paramedic. But when she tried standing, I saw it. Fear. Real fear. Interesting thing about aging. Sometimes independence disappears in one single movement. After that, I installed the cameras. Nothing fancy. 2 inside. Front door coverage. Living room and kitchen. Cloud backup. Encrypted storage. Continuous retention. Exactly the kind of infrastructure setup I designed professionally every day. Interesting honestly. Because the systems we build for safety sometimes become witnesses later. I created the account under Grandma Dorothy's name. Her email. Her credentials. Then, I removed my own admin access. People always react strangely when I explain that part. But privacy mattered to me. It was her home. Her data. Her recordings. Not mine. Interesting thing about ethical people. We assume everyone else values boundaries too. Grandma laughed when I explained how the cameras worked. Who am I gonna show? She asked. The cat? The little green light blinked steadily in the corner above the bookshelf. Soft rhythm. Almost comforting. That little light makes me feel watched, she said once. I smiled. That's the point. What I didn't know. What absolutely nobody knew. Was that 14 months later? That blinking green light would become the only honest witness in my entire family. That blinking green light became the only honest witness in my entire family. Interesting thing about truth. Sometimes it survives quietly in the background while everyone else performs. At first, The missing things were small enough to excuse. A bracelet. Then earrings. Then Grandpa Walter's wedding band. Interesting, honestly. Because betrayal rarely starts with the valuable item. It starts with the item nobody thinks will be noticed immediately. Grandma called me on a Tuesday afternoon about the ring. Cora. Pause. Have you seen your grandfather's wedding band? I was standing inside a grocery store comparing pasta sauce prices when she asked. Ordinary moment. Life-changing question. Interesting thing about devastating memories. They almost always begin inside completely normal afternoons. The silver one? Yes. I could have sworn I left it in the cedar box. I stopped pushing the cart. Just for a second. Because Grandma Dorothy never misplaced sentimental things. Never. Interesting, honestly. Because organized people become terrifyingly precise witnesses once something feels wrong. Maybe you moved it while cleaning? Weak answer. I knew it immediately. She knew it too. But after a long pause, she simply said, maybe. Interesting thing about elderly people. Sometimes they accept explanations not because they believe them, but because they're scared of what the alternative means. A week later, Sandra arrived with store-bought cookies and suspicion dressed as concern. Wellness check, she called it. Interesting, honestly. Because manipulative people always rename surveillance into care first. Grandma sat in the recliner wrapped in the blue afghan while Sandra wandered through the house looking at things too carefully. The dresser. The hallway table. The jewelry cabinet. Then casually, while pouring coffee, Sandra asked, Dorothy, have you thought about who has keys to the house? There it was. Not accusation. Suggestion. Huge difference. Interesting thing about calculated people. They prefer planting doubt because it spreads longer than direct attacks. Grandma had 3 keys. One for herself. One for Robert. One for me. Sandra looked directly at me when she asked the question. Not Robert. Me. Interesting, honestly. Because manipulators always point suspicion toward the safest target first. It's probably nothing, Sandra continued lightly. But things do seem to move around when there are lots of visitors. Visitors. Interesting choice of word. After 10 years of Sunday dinners. After every hospital visit. After helping Grandma bathe after surgery. After driving her to chemotherapy appointments while Sandra posted Bible quotes online. Interesting thing about family revisionism. People erase your loyalty slowly before they erase your reputation publicly. I wanted to say something sharp. Something final. Something that would split the entire performance open immediately. But I didn't. Because confrontation never came naturally to me. I fix systems. Not people. Huge difference. Interesting, honestly. Because emotionally neglected children often become adults who solve problems instead of defending themselves. Then more things disappeared. A cameo brooch. Gold cufflinks. A crystal vase from the mantel. Each time. Grandma sounded more confused. Not angry. Confused. I must be losing my mind, she whispered once while checking drawers for the 3rd time. And honestly? That sentence hurt worse than the theft itself. Interesting thing about aging parents. The cruelest part is watching them question their own memory before questioning the people betraying them. Sandra tightened the narrative gradually after that. Never directly. Always strategically. I overheard her on the phone one Sunday while washing dishes. It's concerning, she told someone quietly. Certain people have more access than others. Pause. And Mom trusts too easily. Interesting, honestly. Because manipulative people prefer implication over accusation until witnesses gather. Then came the pearls. The pearls mattered. Huge difference. Grandma Dorothy's pearl necklace wasn't just jewelry. It was history. Real pearls. Gold seashell clasp. Grandpa saved 11 months to buy them in 1965. Skipped lunch every day. Told co-workers he was fasting. That necklace survived 58 years of marriage. Interesting thing about heirlooms. They carry emotional fingerprints long after the original owners are gone. Grandma only wore them 3 times a year. Christmas Eve. Their anniversary. And my mother's birthday. That was it. She kept them inside the cedar box on her dresser wrapped in soft velvet. When I was little, she used to let me hold them while telling the story. Your grandfather loved quietly, she'd say. Which is the strongest kind. Interesting honestly. Because people raised by loud dysfunction often mistake quiet love for weakness. Then came the church directory photo day. Sandra's idea. Of course it was. Grandma wore the pearls that afternoon. Navy dress. Soft window light catching the necklace. And for one brief second, she looked 30 years younger. Veronica noticed too. Not Grandma. The necklace. Interesting thing about greedy people. Their eyes lock onto objects before emotions. I watched Veronica during the photos. Her fingers twitched once while staring at the pearls. Tiny movement. But enough. Like she was already imagining ownership. After everyone left, I helped Grandma change upstairs. She touched the pearls once before placing them back into the cedar box carefully. Then she looked at me and smiled softly. These belong to the one who stays. I laughed nervously. Don't talk like that. I'm 80, sweetheart. Pause. I'll talk however I want. Interesting honestly. Because old women approaching the end stop wasting energy pretending death isn't nearby. Everyone knew about the pearls. Robert discussed their value constantly. 12 grand minimum. Sandra suggested safe deposit boxes repeatedly. Veronica just stared silently whenever they appeared. Interesting thing about predators. The quietest ones are often doing inventory. Then I discovered the group chat. Accidentally. Grandma showed me a fundraiser photo Sandra texted her. And at the top of the screen, I saw the title. Vance Family Updates. 37 unread messages. Interesting honestly. Because exclusion becomes terrifying once you realize it was organized intentionally. Am I in this chat? I asked. Grandma squinted at the phone. I thought you were. No. I wasn't. I checked immediately after getting home. Nothing. No thread. No invitation. No history. And suddenly, months of weirdness shifted shape inside my head. Interesting thing about emotional isolation. It rarely starts with cruelty. It starts with quiet removal from conversations. I sat alone in my apartment that night holding my phone in the dark. Scrolling through non-existent messages. And for the first time, I understood something devastating. They weren't just suspicious of me. They were preparing something. They weren't just suspicious of me. They were preparing something. Interesting thing about betrayal. The real damage usually begins long before the public accusation ever arrives. Grandma Dorothy's health declined fast after October. Congestive heart failure. Fluid buildup. Shortness of breath. The kind of exhaustion that shrinks a person's world room by room. Interesting honestly, they weren't just suspicious of me. They were preparing something. Interesting thing about betrayal. The real damage usually begins long before the public accusation ever arrives. Grandma Dorothy's health declined fast after October. Congestive heart failure. Fluid buildup. Shortness of breath. The kind of exhaustion that shrinks a person's world room by room. Interesting, honestly. Because dying rarely happens dramatically. Usually, life just gets smaller slowly until someone notices the silence. By November, Grandma barely made it to the mailbox. The church stopped seeing her. The garden went untended. The kitchen stopped smelling like cornbread. And most afternoons?